Welcome into another edition of the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. It is going to be a special night on the north side of Chicago as the Cubs getting ready to raise that World Series championship banner. But before they get to that, we get Ryan Dempster in the Chatting Cage, and that's exciting. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. This is great.
All right, so the way this works, fans, you know how it is. You use that hashtag Chatting Cage on social media, use that MLB Fans app, or hit the Get in Line button on your screen and ask your own questions for Ryan. And we're going to start with social media, Ryan, and Sergon23 wants to know, what was your favorite part about playing at Wrigley Field?
Oh, wow. I just always enjoyed the walk to Wrigley Field. I think I always lived kind of close to in the neighborhood, close to the park, could either walk or ride my bike, and there was just something special about, seeing the guys out front playing their cornhole, playing their beanbag game, and having a couple cold ones, or somebody had the grill going, and just kind of the hoopla and the hubbub around Wrigley Field as you came to the ballpark. And same for postgame. As you'd walk home, you'd see everybody either celebrating or possibly drowning their sorrows a little bit. But just the energy around Wrigley, to me, was as much fun as what went on actually inside the ballpark. And just absolutely couldn't think of a better place to call my office for as long as I did.
Yeah, and that energy level was never higher than after the World Series, obviously, last year, where you couldn't even move around Wrigleyville with all the people, but it was quite a celebration. We're going to stick with social media here, and Always Cutch22 wants to know, Ryan, what was your favorite pitch to throw when you were in a real tough situation?
I don't know. Probably if I looked at my Fangraphs or my StatCast numbers, it probably was a slider. I guess I always felt like in any situation, no matter if the bases were loaded and a 3-2 count, that I felt comfortable throwing it for a strike. And I think, anytime there was a big situation, I felt like if I executed that pitch really well, that I could get somebody to chase it, or even if I threw it for a strike, that I could get good results out of it. So I know the most important pitch to throw is a fastball down and away, and everything feeds off that. But when I had my back against the wall, I always kind of relied on the old trusty number 3 to see what I could get out of it.
And obviously it worked out quite a bit over the course of 16 successful seasons pitching in the major leagues. The cool thing about the Edward Jones Chatting Cage is we get fans on the line, and we have one joining us right now. Fan, go ahead, tell us your name, where you're from, and ask your question for Ryan Dempster.
Hi, Ryan. I'm Will. I live out in Santa Monica, California, but I grew up in Evanston. And looking at the photos, we've lost the iconic side of the field bullpens. And I'm wondering whether you feel any nostalgia for the times you spent warming up right there on the foul line. And do you think the guys are going to miss it this year?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and I will, man. I do have a lot of nostalgia there. I remember countless times coming down as a closer and saying hello to my good friend Phil Grinstead, who would be down there, and Phil and I would always, he sat in the front row there, we'd always share a joke daily. The other fans that you would see in the regulars that were there, and kind of the energy that you would feel, and you'd feed off that from those fans that sat so close and as you got ready for a game. And with it, every time there's change, people have a tough time with it. But I will tell you this one, the new bullpen, the way they've been put together, I know it's underneath the bleachers and it's tucked away, but they did a great job setting everything up in there. And I think over time, the players will learn to love that just as much. But you'll definitely miss those opportunities, and to see the guys sitting down in the bullpen when the line drive was scorched down there, and who would or wouldn't get out of the way. And those days are not there anymore. And unfortunately, that's just the way it goes sometimes. But it's a beautiful new look. You got some room for some more fans to come and sit at the game, and that's always a good thing too.
Yeah, the continued renovations of Wrigley Field over the last few years, it's really become an always a special place, has become modern and special as well. We have another fan joining us right now. Fan, go ahead, tell us your name, where you're from, and ask your question for Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. This is Brian. I'm just wanting to know, how does your arm feel after your WBC performance, and could you still go for a big league team today?
You know what? After all of that, my arm feels surprisingly good. I think putting as much work as I did in for the short amount of time that I pitched definitely kept it fresh for after that. And I don't know if I could. I think it's a lot to demand out of a full season to go out there and do that again. I know in the time of throwing, it felt great. Obviously, I wish the results were a little bit better, but as far as how I felt physically, I was pretty surprised with everything. And, it was a tremendous honor to do that, to go out there, and it definitely gave me an appreciation. And if I ever did forget how hard it was for that time off, I definitely was reminded of how good these guys are, how incredible they are, and that maybe I'm just a little bit better off just standing exactly where I am right now and letting this younger generation go out there and do what they do.
Yeah, and you were in a group with Team Canada where you were basically facing all-star teams in every game as well. We're going to go back to social media now and talk about your newer career, Ryan, and of course that's broadcasting. Glasses for Sight wants to know, what was the most difficult thing about making that transition from ball player to broadcaster?
Yeah, I think something I just touched briefly on. I think the biggest thing as we get away from the game and we get up in the booth and we're watching games on TV, we have so much access to all this different information in the moment. And when the reality is in the moment we're not out on that field, we don't know the emotions that we're going through. And I think just trying to always remember how hard the game is. And it's not that easy to sit back and say, just do this, or he should have just done that. It really isn't that easy. It isn't that simple. If it was, we'd all be doing it. And these guys are so good. They're so talented. And why somebody fails or succeeds, ultimately, we can take all the educated guesses in the world. We can look at arm angles and deliveries and mechanics. But at the end of the day, it might be as simple as, maybe he has a dog he just had to put down, or, grandma's not doing well, or he's just having a tough day. And I think just keeping that in mind as you're analyzing things and going through things, just to understand that they're human beings and that they're going to fail. Baseball has always been a game that's built on failure. Heck, the best hitters in the world fail 70% of the time. So always stay humble and enjoy it, and just realize that it's not that easy from up in the booth.
Yeah, and you have the great perspective of not just being a former ball player, Ryan, but I think someone who always certainly enjoyed playing the game, and you have a lot of fun in the broadcasting side as well. We have another fan ready to go. Go ahead, tell us your name, where you're from, and ask your question for Ryan Dempster.
Hey, Ryan. I'm Mauricio from Arnold, Maryland. And my question for you is, in your opinion, what makes baseball great?
Wow. Well, Mauricio in Maryland, I think, in my opinion, what makes baseball great is that no matter what, at the end of the game, you could be down 20 runs, and until you get that last out, the game's never over. There's not a clock to run out the game. There's not an end of a quarter. You have to play the game all the way to the end every single time, and I think that makes it so great. You can see these epic comebacks that didn't seem possible. And one other thing that makes it great, that on any given day, no matter who you are, no matter who you're facing, you can have success. You can be a young kid facing an all-star studded lineup, and if you go out there and pitch well, you can beat those guys. And I think that's what kind of makes baseball stand alone, is just the fact that there's nothing to run the clock out. You got to get every last out all the way to the end. And to me, that always makes it special. It always makes you understand that, for a kid like you who's at home, remember that, hustle the ball out, because you never know if you beat that ball out in the bottom of the inning, that right there might lead to a rally that ultimately leads your team to win the game.
Yeah, and we saw obvious evidence of that with the World Series just a year ago, and that crazy Game 7 in Cleveland between the Cubs and the Indians, back and forth, extra innings. And that leads us to another fan ready to go. Tell us your name, where you're from, and go ahead with your question.
Hey, Ryan, my name's TJ, and I'm from a little town in North Carolina called Zionsville, North Carolina. But Ryan, a fan of yours for years, and one of the things I remember you doing was an impression of Harry Carey quite a bit of times. I was curious if you could throw us a little Harry Carey impression out to us.
Well, I gotta say, TJ, it's so great to hear from you. We're a beautiful Wrigley Field for the home opener as the World Series champion Chicago Cubs are raising their banner tonight. It's special because something I waited a long time for, always hoping it would happen when I was alive. But as I'm up here in baseball heaven, I'm going to tip open a wonderful glass of Budweiser and kick back and enjoy these world champions as they raise their banners. So cheers to you, TJ, too. Go Cubs!
Thank you. And second question, what was your feelings on when Arenado hit the home run last year in the playoff against the irony of it all against Madison Bumgarner, one of the most, I guess, home run hitters you would say as a pitcher in the game right now?
Yeah, it is. You know, those are the two guys right now. I think if you look at all the guys who can swing the bat, they're at the top of the level, especially for the amount of power that they have. And Arrieta, he can put him out of the ballpark, and I think you're going to see that quite a few times this year. And for him to do it in such a big stage against one of the most elite power, playoff pitchers, and to show that kind of power and put his team ahead like that, what a moment. I was sitting there in the second row at AT&T Park when it happened, and I just remember jumping out of my seat. And so one of so many remarkable moments along the way in that championship run for the Cubs last year.
Great stuff here on the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. A little Harry Carey, a little bit of everything here. And now it's time for our EDJ question of the day. And the question today, Ryan, is have you watched David Ross on Dancing with the Stars? And if you have, what do you think of his dance moves?
I have watched. I haven't missed. I've voted every time. I find as many payphones as I can to vote as many times as I can for him. And I think he's been getting better and better. And whoever, is kind of leading this thing, I think he's right near the top. And obviously he has, a tremendous popularity, a great following from Cubs fans and baseball fans. But I think what you're seeing on the show is just how much his personality is coming through. And we've been firsthand, as I played with him and been around him over the past few years, to his excellent hip thrusts and ability to do his dancing in the locker room. And it's now going out onto the dance floor on national television. And I like the fact that he just owns it. It's not easy to do, to get out there in front of that many people, not just in the audience, but on national television and do that. And he's been owning every minute of it and flashing off those spray-painted abs he had on. And I'm really looking forward to what he's got in store for this Monday night.
That's great perspective into the David Ross training grounds in the clubhouse over a long career as a catcher in the major leagues, and now he's putting it out there for America to watch. Back to social media here, Ryan, and Martin Yankees wants to know, and this goes back to the Cubs and back to October of 2016. What was your initial reaction when that final out was made and the Cubs won the World Series? Tears
of joy. I was so happy. As a player, all I ever wanted to do was win a World Series here. When I played here every year, that was my goal. It's what I believed in. I wanted it so much. I think living in the neighborhood, I wanted it so much for the fans. And initially I was happy for myself, for being a part of something so special. Then for my family and friends, the players, all the hard work they put in. You start to go through it, and then you just start to think of all the fans, the Phil Grinsteads, the Ken Kiefers, the Warren Drews, these people that I know personally that are just die-hard Cub fans. So many of them, the season ticket holders that you would see year in, year out. And then you start to think about the Ron Santos and the Ernie Banks, the people who played here before me that set the tone of what it meant to be a Cub, who weren't with us anymore, but we know we're up in heaven watching the game and smiling down upon it all, and just the tears of joy that came streaming down. It really was. It was. You looked around in section, like I said, section 144, and you just saw all these people with just, tears flowing down. There's the excitement, the joy to know that it finally happened, and that it was possible, and that it could happen, and all the curses were gone out the door, and a new generation's coming through, one that hopefully can go out there and do it again another time. Yeah, they didn't just do it once. This is a young core, and they're certainly good enough this year and for years going forward. Mentioned earlier in the chatting cage that obviously you pitched for Team Canada, originally from Canada. So Chi-Town Tony wants to know, Ryan, who was your biggest baseball influence when you were growing up? Nolan Ryan. I was a huge fan of his. I got turned on to him really early, just watching him pitch for the Texas Rangers, and I just loved the stories I would read about his work ethic and the things that he would do, whether it was, the night after a start, making the hotel gym owner open up the gym before the team left for the morning flight, or, just the ability for him to go out there and pitch until he's 47 years old. And just everything he was able to do. And I love that big high leg kick. And obviously I was a big fan of the strikeouts. So to see him rack up all those strikeouts and pitching no-hitters, and of course, you know, when a young buck tried to charge the mound, he just put him in a headlock and let him know who his dad was, and put him in his place. So just always had the admiration for him, probably more than anybody else, and you know, kind of tried to work as hard as I could to just even be a blip on the radar, respect to what he was able to accomplish in his career.
All right, Ryan, great stuff. And thank you so much for joining us in the chatting cage. Enjoy the ceremony tonight. Enjoy the ball game, and enjoy just being part of that Cubs atmosphere in Wrigleyville.
Absolutely. And thanks to all the fans for the great questions today. I had a blast, and thanks for having me on.
That'll do it for another edition of the Edward Jones Chatting Cage. Make sure you tune in again next time.